Negan might be all locked up on The Walking Dead, but there is a new threat brewing, and we want to break down who that could be. I'm Terri Schwartz, this is Laura Prudhomme. We are talking full spoilers for all things The Walking Dead Season 9, Episode 2, The Bridge. If you have not seen it yet, get out of here. We don't want to spoil it for you, and we will. So come back when you've seen it. But let's talk, Laura, about the new threat that seems to be brewing on the show. Saviors are going missing, or people from the sanctuary, we should say. I don't think they're defining themselves as...
Maybe not, no labels.
No labels anymore. But they're going missing, and we see specifically this big question mark where Zach McGowan's character gets knocked out by someone he seems to recognize, and that seems to be the people who are taking the rest of these sanctuary dwellers who are going missing. Yes. What do you make of this new potential threat on the show?
I mean, you've got to assume that it's the Whisperers, right? That's kind of what the season's been teeing up. It's like there's some big mysterious threat that we don't know about. You'd think that maybe the Saviors or Sanctuary Dwellers would have had maybe some awareness of other groups that are out there, you know, in the area apart from Rick's gang. So it would seem like if anyone's going to be snatching people, maybe it would be them.
It's the weird thing for me with The Walking Dead where we got like one Negan-less episode, right? And it's like there's been this time jump, but then I'm like, oh, this season is just gonna deal with like life after Negan, right? No, of course not. There's another threat, and it's like that weird sort of like whiplash with The Walking Dead where there's always something worse, and that's sort of like what Negan even says to Rick in this episode is like there's always gonna be something. But I forgot until like the end of the episode, and I was like, who could this be? That, oh yeah, the Whisperers are coming this season. So that was sort of my gut instinct, but I wonder, like, is it too soon? Even like, are we only presuming that because we know they're supposed to be coming?
Like they've promoted it, so we're just taking the bait, and that must be what it is.
But I do buy it though a little bit, because like we know that, you know, we hear these whispers, pun not intended, of like, okay, people are going missing between point A and point B. Are they encountering walkers, whatever? And it could be like, I feel like it could be the Whisperers, because like what we know about them is they disguise themselves as walkers.
So it's easy to be incognito.
Yeah, sort of like spoilers from the comics there, but like they're sort of like this other big interesting group that honestly I'm not super familiar with, and I'm excited to see how the show interprets it. And I was convinced that that could have been what it was until the damn helicopter. Like, what do you, obviously we saw this at the end of season 8 as well, where we see Rick sees a helicopter, but what do you make of sort of what we see there at the sort of end of the episode?
End-ish. Yeah, obviously there's this thing with Jadis, who's now going by Anne. Like she has some weird connection with the helicopter that we don't really understand, that was kind of teased last season. I mean, I think from the comics, if I remember rightly, the helicopter was connected with the Commonwealth, which is this whole other big group that we also think could be connected with Georgie, who was the record-obsessed lady who came to visit Maggie last season. So there are a lot of different factions that could be set up. But I feel like if Jadis is connected with the helicopter and the helicopter is connected with Georgie, like Georgie probably would have mentioned something about a helicopter to Maggie.
So it's been a lot of time too. So I completely forgot about the helicopter last season, and sort of like went online and did some digging once I saw this episode, and I did forget that like we see sort of at you know, the dump, I forget the name that like it was going by, the Jada slash and the trash heap, that there was like a heliport there that she played dumb about, and then obviously Rick saw that. So yeah, I am curious, and it makes me feel like maybe there's something brewing, or maybe there are two separate situations that could be coming to a head. The thing I'm most excited about this though is the promise of like a bigger world out there. It is always like, it's funny where it's like, oh, why couldn't we have watched the 1.5 years of Happy Times, right? Have we not earned that yet with The Walking Dead? But like, of course we're coming back in at this point in time.
To drama and, you know, Rick leaving. So obviously all of these threads are coming together to the point where you're like, who's going to be the one to do something? Anyone? Because, you know, that's the seeds are being sown in this episode. Obviously, Daryl is feeling very antagonized. He doesn't like working with the Saviors. He and Rick actually have that confrontation where it's like, are we on the same side? Like, you're making these rules, kind of going back to the Rick-tatorship again a little bit. I don't know.
It's interesting though, because tying it back to the Negan of it all, which is what bookended this episode, like we talked a bit last week about how not having Negan in that episode was kind of welcome and refreshing, but I liked having that bookend this episode, even though it's a really small actual presence for him, but like having that shadow over us where like, if it's not Negan, it's gonna be someone. Right. So what do you sort of make about like Negan's forewarning of life after Negan, if you will, to Rick?
I think that it's kind of a way of Negan asserting his power, even though he can't assert his power. I think Rick even points that out to him. It's like, don't you ever get tired of pretending like you're still in charge? But they are such similar characters, and I think that it's good that the series is kind of foregrounding the parallels between them. Like, maybe Negan wasn't wrong all along. Maybe his way of doing things was kind of the right way of doing things. That was something they kind of teased last season when Rick was making all his unilateral decisions. Like, you know, maybe there's a rhyme and reason to having to be the boss.
I'm gonna do a weird connection right now because like I randomly just started playing Marvel's Spider-Man, the game, which is like very late to this party. But Wilson Fisk says a thing at the beginning to Spider-Man, which sort of sets off the game, which is like, if you kill me, all these other threats will come out. And so I feel like that parallel is here with Negan, where obviously there's been a time jump, there has been peace, there have been people coming together, but it's like with Negan gone, who's been so much the focus of the show, of course there are gonna be other threats. And part of me is like, no, I wanna see that year and a half where people were happy. But the other half of me is really intrigued to see how you come after like multiple seasons so focused on the Negan threat and go back to a time in The Walking Dead where it was like the governor and the wolves and all these other threats that were coming out, and like how we evolve, and like, can we get to a society on the show where even with the, I don't know, I'm very intrigued to see.
It's like, was Negan holding back the darkness of other things that were kind of lurking on the edges?
That maybe are the whisperers and maybe are not, which like I don't even want to call, like part of me I'm like, I'm totally gonna fall for it, right? Like I buy it, but then I'm like, it's probably too easy.
It's too early.
It's too soon,
it's gonna be
it's
something
too
else.
easy. Yeah, we have to get Rick and see what happens with him probably before we get into them. But we want to know what you guys thought about the threat that is being set up in this episode, both this mysterious person or people who are taking out the sanctuary dwellers, but also what is the deal with that helicopter, and do you think it relates back to the Commonwealth? Fortunately, there was a lot of good news about all things The Walking Dead that came out of New York Comic Con. So if you want more things Walking Dead, please do check out how Robert Kirkman's Skybound is actually saving Telltale's The Walking Dead, and also which returning characters are confirmed to be coming back for future episodes. For all things The Walking Dead, Laura and I are going to be here every week breaking down each episode, so be sure to tune in to IGN and like and subscribe to IGN every place you like to watch.